vassal. The Russians had penetrated the highest levels of British government, and indeed could claim a contribution to the collapse of the Tory administration in 1964. While all this was going on, MI5 was worried about the membership lists of the Communist Party, monitoring inane conversations between party officials and their spouses, finding out who was supplying cars to Communist Party electoral candidates, infiltrating organizations such as the Haldane Society of Socialist Lawyers, and following a lawyer with historic Communist Party connections to a restaurant rendezvous with a mistress. Easy work plodding around after people at public expense, but pointless and ineffective. As suggested, in this book we address 4 questions. The evolution of MI5's mandate, which set out its role and functions and to a limited extent the lines of accountability, chapters 2 and 3, the surveillance targets of MI5 and the surveillance methods that it used for this purpose, with a focus in 2 chapters on MPs and lawyers, respectively, chapters 4 to 8. The purposes for which this information was used, principally to exclude people from certain forms of employment, chapters 9 to 12, and the accountability of MI5, or the lack thereof, for the way in which it discharged its responsibilities under the mandate, chapters 13 and 14. As the title of the book suggests, as lawyers our concern is to consider these questions within the context of the rule of law, one of the core principles of the British Constitution, the values of which it was the duty of the Security Service to uphold. One concern has been to question whether there is evidence that MI5 operated without legal authority or exceeded the legal authority that did exist, though we are mindful that material is carefully weeded and redacted before being released to the National Archives. In writing this book, we have acquired debts to large numbers of people, none of whom is responsible for anything that follows. It would, however, be remiss on our part not to acknowledge 1. Our intellectual debt to Tony Bradley and John Hendy, the late Paul O'Higgins and David White, 2. The support we have received from our families and academic institutions, and 3. The access we have had to the National Archives and various libraries which hold the private papers of a number of figures and organizations featured in the text that follows. The libraries include the British Library of Political and Economic Science, LSE, which holds the papers of several figures referred to in the text, Cambridge University Library, the Hull History Centre, which holds the National Council for Civil Liberties, NCCL archive, the People's History Museum, Manchester, which holds Labour Party and the Communist Party archives, respectively, the Squire Law Library, Cambridge, and the University of Sussex Library, which holds the papers of Ben Levy. We also record that this work has not enjoyed the dubious benefit of any grants or funding by external agencies, the curse of modern academia, which, in the long term, will make it more difficult for work of this kind to be undertaken. Small parts of what follows were published in T. Campbell, K.D. Ewing, and A. Tompkins, editors, The Legal Protection of Human Rights, Skeptical Essays, Oxford OUP 2011, The Modern Law Review, The Socialist Lawyer, and The Morning Star, and we are grateful for permission to reproduce that material here. We are grateful to Jamie Berezin and Eve Ryle-Hodges at OUP for their initial enthusiastic support for the project, and particularly to Catherine Rogers for her patience and encouragement thereafter. KDE JM AM, 13 February 2019. 1. Introduction. 1. The Security Service was created in 1909, initially to deal with the problems of German espionage. Although its existence was acknowledged by government and its head sometimes referred to in the press, the Official Secrets Act 1911 ensured that the activities of MI5 were protected from unwelcome public attention for much of the 20th century. During this time, however, the great bulk of its activity was devoted to the Communist Party, its members and related organizations, and during the Cold War this was MI5's principal preoccupation. Working with the Metropolitan Police Special Branch and Provincial Police